Hello everyone, welcome back to another day of the 12 days of psh. What just happened?
Spaceship landing?
No, we went into a random battle.
In this 30-second intro, it's going to happen 19 times.
Oh, it's going to happen a lot. Today we're going to take a look at the best RPGs that came out in 2024. There were actually some cracking ones, weren't there?
Yeah, there's some good games on this list. 10 all told, a variety of different types really.
Yeah.
I mean, all traditional kind of turn-based games, but some that really have their roots in the history of the series or the genre, and others that take a more modern approach.
Absolutely. All right. Don't forget, you can save yourself 5% on your eShop credit over at our website, switchup.gg, and we get the most minuscule of kickbacks from Nintendo. And what else do we need to remember? Our sponsor.
Yeah, thank you to Untold Tales for sponsoring the whole of this series. Please do check out their giveaway that they're doing for Christmas. They're giving away a Switch. There'll be details down below, and they've got a sale going on their games at the minute on the eShop. We're giving a couple of Switches away ourselves, and to be in with a chance of winning one of those, all you need to do is have commented on all of the videos. Once obviously they're all out, 12 videos, and we will pick a couple of people at random.
Lovely. All right. What are the best RPGs of 2024 on the Nintendo Switch? Well, let's find out. Firstly, a massive thanks to Untold Tales, who has sponsored the entire 12 Days of SwitchUp series. They also have their own Switch OLED giveaway. There's information about that in the description. And they released Chernobylite, a port that no one expected to come to the Switch, of this first-person RPG survival game set in and around Pripyat. Now, the highlight game today, well, it's Ready Steady Ship. A delightful two-player couch co-op experience that has you assembling the most efficient conveyor belts to keep the goods flowing out of the factory. I envisage this is what it's like over at a certain Jeff Bezos company, but here you'll be using various tools and equipment to overcome the ever-increasing challenges, which amounts to an avalanche of packages and other items. You've got the simple task of rebuilding those conveyor belts, and to do so you've got a load of different tools and equipment. Things like forklifts and cranes, springboards, because that's what you'd use. And it's very fun. If you've got a couple of you in co-op, it's split screen as well. And you'll find information about the discounts as well as owner's discount on the screen and all the details of that down in the description. Once again, a huge thanks to Untold Tales, you absolute legends, who have sponsored the entire 12 days of SwitchUp, meaning that we can breathe easy and just concentrate on making the videos. All right then, first up, Glenn, we've got The Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak, which I kept banging on about this, didn't I?
Yeah, this is the one that did something with its battling system that you really liked, wasn't it?
It did. To finally see them like move away from the stubbornly held turn-based random combat,
yeah,
has been a delight, honestly, and I don't know if they can ever go back. So basically, you play as this fella named Van Arkride, who's like an underground detective, kind of off the books. But when you do eventually get to combat, you can either use real-time action-based combat, attack the enemies a little bit, soften them up, and then go into turn-based. Or you could just go straight into turn-based combat.
Right, okay, yeah.
And then what was cool is because obviously when you get those like softer enemies, you don't want to be going into a turn-based battle, do you? No, so you just kind of just wail on them for a little bit. And then you do kind of more melee damage when you're just doing physical combat. But if you really need to hit them with magical abilities, then you've got to dive into that turn-based stuff.
Right, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, and like I think we said before about this specific game, actually, any time, any game does something different with its battling system,
yeah,
it just gets extra marks.
Oh,
doesn't it? Just straight away, just
100.
for trying something different.
Definitely, like it makes such a difference to the enjoyment. Now, it wasn't just that, it was the way it was written as well. It was quite refreshing. And I know we've seen detectives as the main protagonists and things, but some of the cases that you go on were really quite interesting with some decent moral decisions, and you did get to decide, the outcome of some of them. You're looking at like 60 to 100 hours as well.
There's a few of these. So you got Legend of Heroes, and then you got obviously the Trails.
Yeah.
But you've got Trails of Cold Steel
Uh-huh.
on the Switch, haven't you? I think the third and the fourth game. But then you've got, and I forget how many now, but you've got From Zero, Trails
Yep.
From Zero, and then you've got a couple of others, is it?
There's so many.
There's quite a few in there.
There's so many. They're quite different as well. The very first one, I forget, but I think you've said it already.
Yeah.
Like I say, the first one that we played on Switch.
That we played, yeah.
That had that kind of top-down isometric perspective. I do really like that look.
Yeah.
I thought it looked fantastic. But this one, again, it's supposed to look more modern. I believe it's a new engine, actually. Someone was saying, because I was complaining about performance on Switch. But yeah, I mean, just now I'm looking at the screen and you've got like trails into Reverie, trails to Azure. Like, there's just tons of them. Literally, Trails from Zero, as you said. And there's another one of Daybreak coming out next year.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, so the sequel, they've obviously been working straight after. That sequel's out next year. Next up then, we've got X Nordics. Do you remember this one?
Yeah, this was a recent review, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a recent 2 reviews, yeah.
So good you did it twice.
Exactly. It's a bit like reggae sauce. Tastes so nice, I had to name it twice. Everyone's like, what the heck is he talking about?
Well, feel free to elaborate.
Well, there was this guy called Levi Roots, right? And he went on to Dragon's Den, and he was there in his little, what's that? What's the Jamaican hat called? By the way, I am quarter Jamaican, so this is my roots, literally. But I forget the name of the hat he was wearing. Yeah. But they obviously see this guy walking in, they're like, what is this guy doing? What's this going to be? Okay. Then he starts singing this reggae sauce song. He's got his little guitar, and then they give him, he gives him the bottle, gives him a taste, and they're like, man, this stuff. So, have you had reggae sauce?
Yeah. It's
good, isn't it?
I didn't know it started on Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was like the most popular Dragon's Den episode ever.
Really?
I don't know if they actually backed him then and there, and then if later his fame kind of grew.
Right.
We'll have to find out.
Yeah.
But yeah, he sings this little song.
Yeah.
Reggae. But yeah, I don't even know what I was talking about now. I've completely lost my track. I was talking about X Nordics. How did I get onto this?
Well, you were talking about doing things twice.
Right, yes, because I had to re-review this one.
Yeah.
Well, I say had to. I wanted to re-review it.
Yeah.
Because my first review was crap.
It wasn't crap. I just feel you...
That's pretty crap.
It wasn't crap. You just didn't... I don't think you felt you got your point across as well as you could have done.
Right. Yeah.
Which is fair enough. So you did it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, that being said, you enjoyed the game.
I did. Yeah, I really did.
You liked it, didn't you?
I did. I think I found... Sometimes like life affects this stuff, right?
Yeah, of course.
You know, you're playing a game, but in real life, the world's exploded.
Yeah.
And it was one of those times, and I could see it, and I could hear it in my voice and stuff like that. So I just wanted to redo it. But the game itself was really enjoyable. It kind of took this idea of being a pirate, on the high seas almost, in the way that you had your ship and you could customize it and then go and do these different naval battles and stuff like that. Some of that was a little clunky. Yeah. But it is nice to see. It's Nihon. Is it Nihon Falcom?
Falcom, yeah.
Yeah, Falcom who make these.
Yeah.
It's nice to see them actually take a few risks. And in some ways, they act a little bit more like an indie team than a AAA. I know they're a AA, but...
They're a well-known name.
Yeah.
But they're not quite as... I don't say established, that's not right. But you know what I mean? They don't have the pulling power, say, of, the big hitters.
Absolutely. And maybe sometimes the constraints... they get to come up with an idea and go, yeah, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Rather than thinking, is it going to sell? So, yeah, I enjoyed it. Good game. Well worth checking out. And a bit of a beast as well. Again, 60 to 100 hours.
Yeah. What we got next then? So next we've got Paper Mario The 1,000-Year Door, which came out on the Switch this year, of course. Originally, it was on the GameCube, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
So this was one I'd never played back in the day. I'd played the original Paper Mario, which was on the N64. And I really enjoyed that game. I mean, we get a lot of Mario spin-off type games these days, and a lot of RPGs specifically. Back then it wasn't the case, that wasn't the case. But this 1,000-Year Door variation of the Paper Mario series was much loved.
It really was. It's all you ever used to hear in the comments.
Yeah, it was. When's it coming, blah, blah, blah. And having now played it, I can see why, because it's a great game. It has a very similar battling system to the games, the first game that I'd played and whatnot, where it's turn-based but action-based at the same time.
Yes.
And you can obviously press buttons at certain moments to deal more damage or reduce the damage you'd otherwise take, that sort of thing. You meet characters as you go on, and you can switch those out of your party, and obviously they've got different moves and what have you. But it's the humour, really, and the writing, the quality of the writing that serves the game so well. There is a lot of it. It's very talky, which sometimes does start to fatigue me a little bit.
Yeah.
But I can at least say that whilst there is still a lot of it, at least what you're hearing is, quite humour-inducing. It does make you smile.
I love that. Was it funny? No, it was humour-inducing.
Yeah, humour-inducing. It's good.
But what about that artwork? Like, they did a great job of making stuff look like cardboard, didn't they?
Yes, they did. And it's had some bits done to it for this Switch version. Quite subtle.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't necessarily know it on first glance, but there has been some work going under the hood. I think I'm right. I mean, I reviewed this ages ago now, but I think they dropped it from 60 to 30.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
So that was one thing that some people weren't keen on. I mean, it didn't really bother me, to be perfectly honest. I mean, anything that was button-based, you know, you had to get your timing right, had been redone with the new frame rate in mind, so it doesn't affect the gameplay or anything like that. It's just worth knowing.
Absolutely, and it's another one that will absolutely, in my opinion, run at 60 when it's on the next hardware.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
It's not struggling too hard.
That's it. We've got one next that I don't know much about, so I'm quite interested to hear your views. That's Unicorn Overlord.
Yeah, this is a bit of a unicorn game, really. Like, it's just such an anomaly in so many ways. Not only did it manage to give you that kind of, and this is where we differ, the JRPG style story,
yeah,
that a lot of people do really enjoy, but it gave you this almost strategy experience where you're building up your army alongside that,
right,
and then giving you the freedom as well within this open world map to choose where you go next. And it felt like these battles actually meant something. You might get like at the end of the fight, the guy that you've just fought will kind of come up, and you have the choice then and there to either like spare him, potentially he joins you or goes off and does something else, or execute him.
Okay, yeah.
So you have this, and then that will also affect how other people treat you.
Right.
Someone might be like, what have you done? Why have you let them live, kind of thing? They murdered my whole family. We've just fought them. What were you thinking?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I was a bit of a savage, I have to be honest. I was like the butcher. You know, I just went in and was like, you want to... You've cut his head off. He was mid-sentence.
The treaty paper just falls to the floor. Blood splattered on it.
To wipe my... No.
Yeah.
So it just was so surprising in how well executed it was. I say so surprising because it came from Vanillaware, and I believe actually like the director or something was not selling, like had to like remortgage the house or something to try and fund it. So, I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? When you've got a team like Vanillaware who have made some amazing games, but they obviously wanted to put that much money into it, and it deserves it. And I'd say it's underrated as well, or at least underappreciated.
Yeah, anyone that's played it, I'm sure, thinks it's incredible.
Yeah.
But I suppose maybe not that many people have played it.
Yeah, I'd say that's, the perfect description of what I'm trying to say, really. So, again, another one about 50 to 80 hours at least. Big old chunky experience. And if you liked 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim...
Oh, right, yeah.
Although it's a completely different setting, same team, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
It feels fitting. It's weird. It feels like they kind of took some of the best ideas of that, maybe in some of the storytelling, but not necessarily the way the strategy was implemented, and then did the best of both worlds.
So does it have that same side-on walking view that 13 Sentinels had, or is it completely different?
It's very different.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of it's played out from like this overview, from almost like a top-down isometric kind of look. But it does go to the side-on for some of the combat and stuff, where it goes to a bit more of a traditional turn-based. But yeah, it's just a very different experience. Very good game. Well worth it.
Nice. Right, then we got Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance.
Yeah, it's good because when you first did this, I hadn't actually played it, but now I've played a massive chunk, like 40 hours of it. Yeah. So I think we can both have a good chinwag about this one.
Yeah, I will say first of all, before talking about the game itself, was the whole model that they've used to release it. So obviously 5 itself released last year, or it might have been a couple of years ago actually. But the point I was going to make is that they've added in like a new story.
Right.
But a lot of what you play to get to that point is very similar. Like very similar. Do you know what I mean? You're seeing a lot of the same stuff before you get to the point where it branches off. And you can't just buy the extra story. You have to buy the whole thing again.
It was a bit odd, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's great. It's not great. But moving away from that, just the game itself, it is very much one of my favourite RPGs on the Switch.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. I think the only thing is it's not the first time they've done something like this. I saw a few comments. It's Atlas, isn't it?
Atlas, yeah.
Yeah, where they've kind of repackaged something
right.
on. And this feels like a director's cut to me.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that when you get into the story and it does branch, there are a lot of differences. It's just such a strange decision to make you sit through so much of the same to get to that point. I don't know why they did it that way. But yeah, let's give the game some credit because it's on a list of the best. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
The actual combat, I think, is brilliant.
It is.
I love the negotiating that you do with the villains and the demons to get them to join your team, and then the fusion aspect to it as well.
Yeah, it does really have that Persona-like feeling to it in that regard.
Yeah, so this is... Persona was a spin-off of this.
Yeah.
but obviously Persona, I think it's fair to say, has become the more popular of the two these days. But I always preferred this one. I always liked this one better. And I loved how you really did have to think about certain boss battles.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them just annihilated you, didn't they? Like,
they're brutal.
Yeah, they're really tough. But you didn't... I mean, there were times when you did have to grind. I'm not going to say you didn't have to grind, but you kind of... You did it with a view to doing or to trying something. It wasn't just about, this team's not strong enough, I'm going to go and do random battles and come back. It might have been that you look for another enemy to recruit, or one to then fuse to make a completely different type.
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be. But then there's things like you could add an immunity of a particular element to your team, to your main character, so that he's not weak to whichever boss it is you're fighting anymore. All these little nuances.
Yeah, those little essences that you could take on.
Yes.
That was really cool, actually. I like that a lot. It was a nice idea. I think like that, it takes almost... The part in Bravely Default that you really enjoyed, where you have to adapt yourself, it kind of takes that feeling and turns it into almost like the monster collecting style of RPG.
It does, it really does. And my favourite RPGs are always the ones where strategy plays a big part.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them, if you're not strong enough, you're not strong enough. The end. I love games where you can overcome adversity through being better yourself, actually doing something different.
Yeah, you've given me flashbacks of one of the first bosses. It was like in a sandy area, this massive thing, and it annihilated me until I realised that you could I think it was something like it was really weak to poison or something.
Yeah, I think the first, I don't know if it's the first boss, but the first one I remember struggling with, I think it was weak to fire.
Right.
And so obviously that's something you bear in mind. And then there's a lady, like a snake lady, again, quite early on, that I seem to remember really struggling with and having to come back and think about and stuff. I just think it's a great game. It's just, the whole repackaging, this Vengeance, was a bit odd.
Yeah. For me, great, because it was the first time I'd played it, and I picked it up for 19 quid.
Exactly right. And if you've never played it before and you're buying this one for the first time, you're absolutely laughing. Right, we've then got Mario and Luigi Brothership, which was a relatively recent release.
It was indeed. Yeah, this was a massive surprise to me. I'm not usually the person that does the Mario reviews. I think it's fair to say you're the connoisseur of Mario, and certainly the ones that take things in the RPG kind of direction. So it took like a turn. So for like the first hour, I was like, oh, this is average.
Yeah.
And then it took a real turn when they gave you the freedom to kind of target islands with your little cannon and just send out your thing, and also plotting routes to the next islands. And every time you started to think, oh, why don't they do this? They did it.
Right.
So things like the speed that you sail around. At first I was like, wow, you're sailing in real time. This is ridiculous. I'm bored. And then they introduced the speed mechanic. The combat, I'm like, this is a bit simplistic. And then they introduced the kind of what amounts to like modifiers, magical modifiers and elemental modifiers. They introduced that. The amount of islands as well, like... There's so much in there. I don't know how you could not like this.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played it. I played a tiny bit with you, but like when we do reviews, sometimes we start together and play a bit together, just that first, half an hour or so. And then obviously whoever's doing the review, goes off and really gets into it properly. So I only saw that very first bit that you've just said felt quite average, and I felt exactly the same. Yeah. It was one of those games, it's fine. Yeah. And I've not seen any more, but you were messaging me, obviously, as you were then getting into it properly and saying, no, this is good. Like, this happens, that happens. So it's nice to see it does obviously pick up.
It really does. Yeah, it really does. I mean, if I'd obviously reviewed it based on the first island, I'd be giving it like a 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10, yeah, exactly right. Right, we've then got Romancing Saga 2, Revenge of the Seven, which is, or was, a Super Nintendo game, or Super Famicom game. I don't think it released in the West. It certainly didn't release in Europe anyway. And this is one of the SaGa games, and there are many of these on the Switch. And it's a game that I'd always wanted to play, like the original, I mean.
Yeah.
And had tried to play it. They did a remaster, so this is a full remake.
Yes.
But they did a remaster of it, which is also on the Switch. And I gave that a go, and I struggled to get on with it.
Right, this one's quite refined, isn't it?
This is very good. To the point, I want to go back to that remaster and try again and just see where my head was, because I don't see how I could find the two so different,
Yeah.
But this remake is great. Yeah. So with all the SaGa games, they have some of their nuances in terms of their mechanics. Their combat mechanics, I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And the biggest of those is the way that your moves
are all kind of very separate, so that when you level up, you'll only level up moves that you actually use. So it's not just about winning battles and therefore getting stronger.
Yeah.
So you find yourself using weapons that you might not otherwise have used to try and improve your character's competency with them, you know?
Yeah, it's good when they do that, because very often in RPGs, you tend to stick to what you know.
The tried and trusted, yeah.
Get the longsword out.
Exactly. And here, you don't do that. Or you can do that if you want, but then you'll have characters that are not well-rounded.
Right, okay.
And it works very well. And aside from that, that's one part of it, but then you have the whole...
Like the lineage system or something.
The lineage system, yeah, exactly right, where you go down through the ages and you pass on, being the next successor to the crown, and that changes up your team as well. Obviously, you have brand new teams. It's just very well thought out, and bearing in mind this game is in its original form over 30 years old.
Wow,
like, some great ideas in there, like, very ambitious ideas for that time.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? It's nice to see. I saw you fight a boss, actually. I think that was a bit of a standout, how good the boss fights were.
Yeah, the bosses are great, because, again, there was one, not the one you saw, but there was another one that absolutely destroyed me. Like, it was the eve of my review, and I had most of it in my head kind of planned as to what I was going to say and the mark I was going to give it. And this boss annihilated me. And I was like, oh, wow, like that's concerning, because I was actually pretty strong at the time.
Yeah.
I was like, that seems like a spike and a half. And I took my kids to school that morning, and I was thinking it through, and I thought, right, I've got another strategy. I'm going to try something else. And I came back. I thought, I'll put off the review. I want to just make sure. And I tried something else, and I beat him.
Nice.
And I was like, yes, okay, that's fine. Because it just proved again that whilst I did lose the first time, if I just think about it, step back and think about it, you can overcome it, you know?
And that's the proper design, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. All right, what we got next?
So next we've got Dragon Quest III, the HD 2D remake.
This is a lovely looking game, obviously a very loved game in the series. Strange that they released this before the other two.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming the reason for that is that this is a prequel
yeah, okay.
of the three, so you had 1 and 2, and then the third one went back in time.
That makes sense.
So they've just released it almost chronologically this time.
Uh-huh.
And the 3 games that we're talking about are called the Erdrick trilogy, and they're bringing, obviously, as you just mentioned, parts 1 and 2 out. Is it next year?
Yeah,
it's next
early
year,
next year as well.
Early next year. But as a 2-pack, they're doing them together,
Sure.
I think, aren't they?
Couldn't resist, man. Come on, I can't hear the word 2-pack not make a reference.
Oh dear.
Your face. Such disappointment. Such disappointment. Someone in the comments is busting out 2001 rap. Hopefully. Sorry. What
right.
you say?
Yeah. Exactly. So Dragon Quest.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's a good game now.
Oh, I like it.
Not enough rap in it.
No.
Some things will never change.
No. Hey.
It's just the way it is.
Ooh, hang on. I don't know another line from it. So
no,
that's a shame.
That's a shame, really.
Well done.
Doing well there.
Tell me about Dragon Quest, Glenn.
Oh yeah, let's talk about Dragon Quest. No, this is a very good game. Very traditional. Obviously, was it NES originally back in the day, and it still feels like that. It has its roots very much in its past, but with that lovely HD 2D style that Square Enix have started to deploy in some of their games, and it looks lovely. Like it really does. The depth of field and the light and shadow techniques that they use create a really quite beautiful looking game. It is very traditional, and that does mean all the things that come with that in terms of random battles and what have you. But if you're in for all that, then you're going to have a great time, because it's it's like you're partying like it's 1988 or whatever it was.
Great year.
It's a good year.
Oh, good year.
It was a good year. The third game probably didn't even come out in 1988, but you get the idea. Yeah, some of it I felt could have been refined further still. But that's not to take away from what's here, and it's definitely, without shadow of a doubt, one of the best RPGs to come out this year.
Next up then, maybe a surprise for some people that it's on the list, is Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes, and that's not easy for me to say. It's a difficult name. Now, they had the Eiyuden Chronicles Rising on Switch, which was a prequel to this, kind of setting up the world and the characters, and I really enjoyed that, actually. You had a kangaroo with a buster sword.
Nice.
What's not to like about that? But then this one really goes full bore on the concept, which is that you're recruiting these different characters. I think there's like 100 different people that you can recruit. It has turn-based combat, traditional in that way. The combat I do like, though. You can have these quite large battles, you know, it's not just like your 3-on-3. As is, you know, happens very often, sadly, they launched it too early, in my opinion. I was talking like, I played an hour and a half and then the game crashed, and I was like, I remember messaging you and just being like,
Yeah.
It's so frustrating because it's difficult then not to just view it through that lens.
Yeah.
You know, the lens of performance issues or the lens of crashes. But as a game, it has received a number of updates, and it's sad as well because the team, I believe someone key to this team, maybe the original, you'll have to correct me on this, but someone had died basically who had worked on this, or, you know, he passed away. So it also was a bit of like a tribute to them. So they didn't want it to be released in a bad state. So then they very much made the community aware of the updates they were going to do. And they have done like significant work to it on the performance front, but also tweaking the gameplay. And I like that idea of recruiting this massive army. Like, it's just different from what you would normally have, you know?
Yeah.
And then you have these almost strategic battles as well that you can take part in later. It's like a building up your, I don't want to call it like a fort, like you're building up your like stronghold where your army resides and all of that stuff. A little bit like, what was that other game, that other RPG where you built up a stronghold later in it? It was the sequel. The first one looked like Studio Ghibli. The second one I did a review of, also very good. Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch was the first one. Ni no Kuni 2, The Prince's Malarkey.
Right.
You had to build up your own town in that later in the game.
I didn't realise you had to do that.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay.
And that's what made it better.
Yeah.
You know, as you hit that area, it's like, wow, that's really cool. And done quite well as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of reminded me of that in that regard, but with this ludicrous amount of characters that you could recruit and stuff. Good game.
Nice. Right. And the last one, I think the most recent release out of all of these, that's Fantasian Neo Dimension.
Yeah, this was strange because it originally released on Apple Arcade.
Yeah.
And sometimes, whether it's right or wrong, when it's a mobile release, you're kind of expecting a mobile game.
Yeah.
You know, you're expecting that the catch almost. Like, gotcha, put your coins in now, you know, that kind of feeling. And that never arrives. And actually it was released in 2 parts on the Apple Arcade originally, and they've released it as one full pack. But they've done a load of other changes as well. You know, they've changed gameplay mechanics, they've changed some of the control mechanics. The way that some events play out is different. So it's actually, they've taken what was a very solid mobile game, they've turned it into a very solid console game.
Nice, yeah, good.
Which, you know, that is... And I remember messaging you because I was like, oh, it's random battles. Like, and I was getting really frustrated.
Yeah.
And then it introduces this lovely little mechanic where you've got this little device that stores up all the battles. Everyone should do that. And then you choose when you fight them. Except if you let it get too full, it hits 30, then you have to fight all 30 enemies in one go. It's quite cool the way it works. You should have like 10 on screen. It's quite cool, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that. It's a very clever idea. So, I don't know if you might not know, but let's say you're storing your battles up. Do they scale with you in terms of difficulty? Like, let's say you fight them much later, by which point they were weaker. Do you know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, you've got to remember that if you fight them much later, you haven't got any stronger because you haven't fought anything.
Oh, I suppose, yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's always going to be around about your level.
Yeah, fair enough.
Unless you go through an old area, save them up, and then you will just annihilate them.
Yeah, right, okay. Okay, yeah, still a good idea though. I like that, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have your traditional boss fights as well. And it's just... It's funny, you know, there's some stupid bits in Final Fantasy VII that stick in my memory, and they are ludicrous. Like, there's a bit where you have to dress up as a woman, and you end up doing squats and stuff, and you've just got to push the button in time to do these squats.
Yeah.
And then Neo Dimension did something like that. And what I didn't realise at the time is that it's created by the Final Fantasy, like, the king of Final Fantasy, guy, you know, as he's known as, like, the godfather of Final Fantasy, something like that, the father of Final Fantasy. So it is really a Final Fantasy game with another name.
Right.
So you get those moments, you know, the ship's going to explode and he's like, right, you guys can help. And you're just pushing these buttons in order. And it is stupid, but I liked it.
Yeah.
You know, it has that nostalgic pull. I'm like, yeah, I can handle that.
Nice, nice.
So that was it, Glenn. See if we can hit no random battles at the end of this video.
Just don't move. Just stand still in that cave.
How many times have you actually done that in a game?
Oh, so many. Or you press the button lighter and hope that your steps won't be as heavy, as you won't trigger yet another of the sudden things.
Can I just say, any game where you're doing stuff like that, it's a bad gameplay design.
It's annoying.
It's annoying.
It's bloody annoying.
Because in one of the games in this list, 100 Heroes, I worked out it was 24 seconds exactly of movement that was a random battle. So I used to stop at 22. So be there. Oh, for flip's sake.
I remember playing Pokemon for the first time. And not when it first came out, because I don't know, I'd moved on to other things. So I played the leaf green one.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, this is good. Like, bloody hell, I missed out on something here. And then hit the caves. I was like, oh man, I never want to see this game ever again.
If you like random battles, I feel sorry for you, but you know, you've got a lot of choice. So that was our list. What else have we got to say?
So yeah, thank you to Untold Tales for sponsoring this series for us. It's much appreciated. Do check out the links in the description for their giveaway, as we said at the start, and have a look on the eShop for some of their games that are currently on sale. Don't forget, we are giving away a couple of Switches of our own. And
yes,
again, we are indeed. Just comment, that's all you've got to do. Just some nice, pleasant comments, and we will pick people at the end of the series. Thank you to our patrons and our channel members, as always, for your continued support. And we'll see you tomorrow for another one of these. Take care and happy gaming.